The way, what I hope to convey to you guys today is that this laboratory is uniquely suited for making significant advances in the area of neuromarketing. And the way that I believe that we do this, or that we can accomplish this, is that our laboratory has a distinctive approach to neuromarketing research. And the way that I've conceptualized this, it's no coincidence it all starts with the letter I. I have a fondness for alliteration. But the way that I've conceptualized this is that we employ integrative techniques using innovative technology with an interdisciplinary team. And why is this approach necessary? Why do we take this kind of complicated approach? Well, consumer responses are complicated, from what I can tell as a neuroscientist and a consumer. Consumer responses are multidimensional, they're complicated. Therefore, it's going to require a multidimensional analysis or assessment process to kind of get at some of these concepts that we're interested in. For example, we can look at concepts such as ads, brands, or products, and try to examine the associated cognitions with them. What are the sensory characteristics of a particular product or ad that appeal to us? What immediately comes to our senses? Is it a sight? Is it a particular sound that we're hearing? How is our attention directed in this regard? Are we paying attention to specific parts of an advertisement more than others? How does the role of experience or our past history using a particular brand come into play? What is our emotional perception of that product or concept? Do we like it? Do we hate it? Do we have something, do we just feel ambivalent towards it? And how does this govern our preferences? Basically, how do we go about, do we like this product or not? And ultimately, the goal of all this is to kind of predict and make some comments about consumer behavior. What governs the decision to purchase something? How do we go about planning that purchase and strategizing? Oh, I want to go get that big TV. And ultimately, what governs our purchase behavior and how we view the purchase once it's made and what we tell our friends about it. And in our laboratory, we're interested in tapping into this whole area of cognition, this really multidimensional, multifaceted approach. And in order to do this, we need to integrate several techniques to get at this complicated response. And one of the major areas that we rely upon to get to look at complicated consumer behaviors and responses are some of the tools, the traditional tools of cognitive neuroscience. And two in particular in our laboratory that we draw upon are electroencephalography, also known as EEG, and eye tracking. Now, just to kind of give you a brief primer on what each of these are, EEG is the measurement of the electrical activity of the brain. The nerves in our brain communicate in two major ways. That is electrical and chemical communication. And we're sampling or measuring electrical communication. And when what we can get from measuring this electrical activity of the brain are two basic measurements. One is a global assessment of our cognition, of our state of being. So we can see a different pattern of electrical activity or measure a different pattern of electrical activity if we're aroused or paying attention to something as opposed to if we're relaxed. You can see that there's certainly a change in the electrical activity, in the amplitude and frequency of that activity based on our state. We can see further changes if we're sleepy or bored. Got to be careful how we design experiments in the lab. We don't want to see a lot of this stuff when someone's bored with a task. And even further than that, neuroscientists can't even tell what stage of sleep you're in. Deep sleep looks a lot different than light sleep, and it looks a lot different than dream sleep when assessing the electrical activity of the brain. Now, this is a global measurement of electrical activity. We can also get very, very specific, and we can look at the brain's response to a particular stimulus. We can show a person an ad, a picture, have them listen to a sound, and look at the characteristic response of brain activity that occurs as a result of that particular event. And researchers have established that there are characteristic components of these responses. And by studying how quickly these components appear, what these components look like, the amplitude, the strength of these components, we can make some educated guesses and draw some conclusions about what's actually going on in the brain. Is a person just responding to the sensory characteristics of a particular concept? Or are they doing some more advanced cognitive processing, like retrieving a memory about it or making some decisions? On the other hand, we can also look at some behavioral tools that are used in the cognitive sciences. And one of those tools that we rely upon heavily in our laboratory is eye tracking. Now, eye tracking is a great tool because what it does is it allows us to identify an area of great interest to a person. So we can show them a particular picture, and we can find out exactly what they're focusing on in that picture. And these are classic examples in the cognitive science literature of eye tracking, where a person is shown a picture, and we can actually mark the gaze trail of where their eyes focus on these pictures. And we know from years of psychology and cognitive research that people are generally drawn to faces. We like faces. And you can see here in this gaze trail that there's a lot of activity in the facial region and in the eyes and the facial features. Even when looking at a statue of a person, we focus in on the faces. Humans like faces. That being said, we like other parts of the human body as well, as seen here in this heat map, which is a little bit more modern way of looking at eye tracking. In addition to these great tools of cognitive neuroscience, we have the capacity and are even currently developing more of these traditional biometric analyses in our laboratory. Just to name a few of the things that we're capable of or developing technology for, we can look at skin conductance or galvanic skin response, which is measuring how moist or sweaty the skin is. And the reason that we do that is to get a measurement of arousal or excitement or how engaged a person is with the particular situation or stimulus. We can measure the electrical activity of muscles, and in concert with facial recognition, we can use those two measurements to assess emotional reactions to a stimulus. If a person sees something that makes them happy, the activity of the muscles in the face can be measured and characterized, and we can identify that that emotion is occurring. Additionally, we can also look at some more classic measures like ECG, which measures heart rate and autonomic nervous system responses and respiration, to also gauge how alert a person is, how interested they are in something, or how excited they are, or stressed. So to integrate these techniques, to take these tools of cognitive neuroscience and combine them with traditional biometrics is going to give us a real powerful set of tools available for assessment. And so that way we can look at all this multifaceted nature of consumer response. We can assess attention, preference, emotion, or memory as they relate in real time to our stimuli of interest and what we're trying to study. And this may sound like a lofty ideal, and it is to a certain extent. This is hard business. It has taken our laboratory a lot of effort to integrate this, to look at these techniques in combination, as well as to integrate EEG and eye tracking with video and audio and incorporate all these different things together to be able to look at a couple of different biometrics together with EEG or eye tracking. This has required a lot of research and development, and in order to do a lot of this, we've had to have custom-built proprietary software developed in order to integrate these measures.